Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man who has never slept a night in his life. He's only waited for the next mission to begin. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach. A man who ain't got to get ready because he stays ready.
That's what we call tactical sleep. Not
Oh,
actually,
is it?
my eyes are closed, but I'm not asleep.
So this is a real thing. I thought I made it up, but clearly it's a real thing. All right, G, I'm very much looking forward to getting into this one because we didn't plan to have a sort of linked. We did unpopular opinions last week, which was talking about the division of labor in homes, which I feel you and I are unapologetic about, and also living out as proof of how well it works. I'm proud of our family.
I've had the conversation with a couple people since then. Hey, you can give me all of your reasons, but tell me how my points aren't valid.
Right. Well, some of the people that wanted to tell you how your points weren't valid were women on YouTube, which I did not necessarily expect because that was not the focus, nor did I think that was the audience that we drew. But I think something in the title somehow brought enough people that thought that they could watch 2.5 minutes of a 22-minute podcast and judge us and say a bunch of comments about how one of them was the way we were able to live is because we have unpaid labor at home, which I thought was an especially brilliant assessment of our wives. That one amused me a lot. But the point being, like, my takeaway, so we go back into these comments, and I went back to these people and lovingly challenged them, not in a way, like, I'm not like a comment basher. I think keyboard warriors are so weak. So like, I don't get insulting. I always think like, what do these people need in the moment?
Proverbs tells us how to deal with that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, so, but the point being, when I was going back, I came away and I sent Garrett on our little group thread message. I said, man, there's a lot of women who have been scarred by men because there was just such a visceral reaction towards men in general about what we were saying, not towards us, but they're like, oh, typical male privilege. Like we had comments like that, and it's like, wow. So somewhere out there, these women have been not loved well, is what I would say, because, and that was my point to them. I was like, we're on the same page with our wives. We have a vision for our families. We're loving and serving each other. We're not scorekeeping like that. And that's the whole point. And so Garrett has this thing he says, because we're very encouraging of saying, hey, lead your wife, serve her as Christ served the body. It's Ephesians 5 leadership. But a lot of guys are like, well, my wife won't follow me. And what's the question you always ask them, Garrett?
Yeah, Nick and I both have men that come to us and ask for help, in this category, like, and I'm struggling in my leadership, my wife this, my wife that, and I just ask them a simple question of, why wouldn't your wife listen to everything that you say? Why wouldn't she believe everything that you say? Why wouldn't she follow you wherever you want to go? Right? If I told my wife, tomorrow that we're moving to Argentina, she'd say, okay, right? She might ask for some of the details, but she would have questions, but she wouldn't question me. And there's a difference.
Yeah. And really hear that, because question you would be like, oh, great. Okay, what is it this time? It's like that thought process. And I think if you ask your wife to do something, or you have an idea like what Garrett said, not necessarily to move to Argentina, but if you're like, hey, I think we should do this, and it's immediately like, no, I'm not, and it's heels dug in, this should be an alert to you. And so this episode is literally why your wife won't follow you. And
and this isn't, we're going to talk about it specifically from this angle, but I will say a lot of the things that we're going to talk about are not just for why wouldn't your wife follow you, but why wouldn't anybody else follow you? And on the other side of that, for ladies, this is the same thing, right? Like these are principles that we're going to talk about that govern your relationships and govern the people around you and how they view you.
Yeah. And I mean, really, the principle that you're navigating and what we're going into is trust. And we covered it on our episode that came out not last Monday, but the Monday before, because the two things that you're sacrificing, why your wife won't follow you, comes down to respect and credibility. And it's those two things. You're sacrificing those unknowingly.
Nick asked me about that, and what does that look like, or why is it that people, your wife or anybody else, won't follow you? And men all the time. And, again, I'll say that this is for you too, ladies. You can learn from this, but this is where I'm very passionate about this with men. And I pay attention to men in this way. Men do this all the time. They do things that sacrifice their respect and their credibility. And it gets you out of the situation that you're in. But I'll just give like an example for me personally. Like I'll make a mistake on something, or I'll fail on something. And I'm talking to whoever I'm responsible to. And instead of making an excuse and saying like, oh, the weather, this situation, this whatever it was, and whether those things are valid or not. Maybe it rained, right? Like, why did I dropped my stuff because it was raining? I'm not going to say like, oh, it was the rain, blame it on the situation, because then what you're saying is you're actually demeaning yourself. You're saying I can't manage this situation. It's actually what you're saying. So the is that what you want to do? Do you want to disqualify yourself to whoever you're speaking to and say, well, under these set of circumstances, I cannot succeed? I don't ever want those words to come out of my mouth. Right. And so when I'm in that situation where I've made a mistake or whatever it is, I'd rather just own it and say, you know what, I messed up there. I was not paying attention enough. I didn't give this enough diligence. I didn't give this enough attention. I didn't spend enough time on this, whatever it is. But you know what? I know how to fix it. And so, yeah, they might be frustrated at me. And where you might think that's a reputation hit, what I'm actually saying is, no, I am capable of this. And if you give me another chance or on the next chance, I'm going to do a better job with this, instead of trying to get out of the pain, get out of the judgment by saying like, oh, it was the situation.
Yeah, and then you have to go do what you said you were going to do. So let you started on sacrificing credibility there, G. So let's just give like we weren't. This is not a hypothetical issue. We want this to be a blind spot revealer, like an awareness issue. And understand, Garrett and I are very passionate about men. Like I think you know that if you listen to this podcast, about seeing men restored to the credibility and fruitfulness and dominion that God made them to have, which means that they're leading, they're serving, they're loving, and they're truly bringing about God's order in the earth. And so when my takeaway from reading those comments was, I was like, man, where are these men at? We need men to step up and actually show what it looks like to love and lead well. And so this is an awareness highlighter. So the first place, let's talk about sacrifice credibility. And we're going to go into practical ways so you can understand, because I think a lot of men do this and they don't understand what Garrett just says. It's excuses. You make an excuse and you don't realize this, but think about in your own life. If you were asking anybody to do something and they were like, oh, I'm sorry because of this, that, and the other, okay, maybe one time you don't think about it. But when that becomes their regular MO, what do? You stop asking that person to do things because you know that guy's not going to get it done. You want to find somebody who you know if they say they're going to do it, they're going to do it. So we all get that from a standpoint of like hiring a mechanic, or that construction guy that didn't come over when he said he was going to. Man, he's got no credibility. But then we do the same things in our home whenever it's like, hey, did you get the kids? Or hey, did you take the trash out? Oh, you know what? I was going to, but dude, you know what? I'm sorry, I forgot. I'll take it out right now, and it won't happen again. Great. Keep your credibility intact. It's
That's
basic.
Yeah, you're trying to get out of the pain of the situation, but what really happens to you is you're burning your credibility. And before we get into some of the details, I want to just kind of talk about a situation that guys get themselves in that's a negative situation. If you have made poor choices for a season of your life, and you get into a place, so maybe it's just with your wife, and this is a hard one for men, because I've seen this where guys maybe have a lot of respect and credibility at work, and they have very little respect and credibility with their wife. And they use that as an opportunity to say like, these guys have so much respect for me, obviously I'm perfect, and you're messed up, right? And that'll create a bunch of contention between you and your wife. One, it's what my dad said, if the shoe fits, wear it. And the truth is that you've made some mistakes. So whether you think your wife acknowledges your greatness in another area or not, you got to take some ownership there and have a desire to build back your respect and credibility. Secondly, when you are in a place of low respect and credibility, it actually is, that's the hardest time that it is to build respect and credibility. So let me just give an example, right? A lot of men have trouble controlling their temper and their emotions. Okay. So the next time you get triggered, if you already have no respect and credibility, the next time you get triggered, you're just going to fly off the handle again, because it doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
Right. Everyone already thinks you're, going to fly off the handle all the time. So why wouldn't I just do it again? It's what they already think of me. But over time, when you build respect and credibility, the more respect you have, the more it'll cost you to just deviate a little bit in your attitude and your complaining and your excuses. We'll get into all these little things in a second. The more respect and credibility you build, the more it will cost you when you do those things. And so when you've built that over a decade or decades in your life, it is a little bit easier to make the right behavioral choices, because you can see like, man, if I just lose my temper one time, I could lose something that I've spent 10 years building. Obviously that's like a, bowl of soup for your birthright situation. It's a little bit easier to make the right choice there. But when you don't have years of respect and credibility you've built, sometimes it's hard to get out of that loop. And the only encouragement I have to people is to say, you just got to start sowing the seeds. It needs to become a values-based decision so you can get out of that hole, right? Let it become who you are. And then years from now, you'll have all the respect and credibility that you wanted to have, and it'll be way easier. And so I just wanted to say that to acknowledge
Very good.
it is easier for some people than others to make the right behavioral choice. When you
Yeah.
already, it's like if you, a good analogy for it would be like if you were $1 million in debt and you're not a high income earner, like you make $50,000 a year, $1 million of debt would be very scary to you. And so then you'd be like, what's 1.1 million versus
Right.
$1 million in debt? I'm not getting out of this situation anyways.
Right.
Right. But if you're a $50,000 income earner and you have $1 million in savings and something could potentially cost you $100,000, you're going to do everything you can to not lose that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's men, factually, I know there's men listening to this who are in that situation where their credibility for a variety of reasons is shot and it's in the toilet and their wife doesn't trust them. Here's a little caveat to what Garrett just said. Unlike $1 million where you have a defined number that you can look at, you don't get to set a time frame on how long it takes you to build back your credibility and trust. So don't sit there and be like, well, I've been doing it for 4 months. If you were a ding dong for 25 years, guess what? You might have to pay a little longer than 4 months. And you might say, well, how long? I don't know.
It does work. It does work like compound interest, though, in
Right.
that, the amount of money that you have saved and accrued over 10 years, half of it is in the last 2.5 years.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like the stuff that you did in year 1 and year 2, when you're there, it feels like it's not doing very much, but it's setting you up for the massive growth and acceleration in your respect and your whatever your assets are that we're talking about, whether it's financial or respect and credibility. It's setting you up for that explosive growth that happens in the later years.
I love that thought process so much because it is such a beautiful encouragement for endurance. Because it's like the first 6, you're going to get more done in year 7 than you got done in the first 6, but it's because of the first 6 that you already put in, which I love. Okay, so let's keep going then, G. So for sacrificing credibility, we said excuses. The other thing, quitting, right? Very similar to excuses. If you're quitting on whatever it may be, you said you were going to do something, then you just decided that you're going to change your mind, or your wife sees you quitting on other things, even if it's not something that you've committed to for her, no one's going to go like, oh, they only quit in one area, right? It's a dangerous thing to start. Like you say, your quit defines you. That's the Garrett Unkelbach quote, right?
Yep. Yeah, it does until you decide to be different. But yeah, if you quit everything, I don't remember whose story it is. Gosh, it doesn't matter. But if you've quit a bunch of things in your life, that's where like you even sign up for something as simple as a marathon and your wife goes, "Oh, you'll quit on that too." Which how disappointing that your wife would feel that way about you, but also you've put yourself in that situation.
Right.
You have ruined all credibility. My wife thinks I'm partially insane, and anything I tell her that I'm going to do, she believes me.
Yeah.
And that's because I've developed credibility there.
Yeah. I mean, what a sad thing if your wife is always telling you, like, no, you're not okay. Like, if you're like, I'm going to do this, and she immediately starts laughing at you, that should be a massive alarm bell and not mad at her. You should be looking at yourself going, why would she think that I'm going to back out on this? It's an alarm bell. Next thing up for credibility is laziness. And
Just on that real quick,
yeah,
Nick, maybe you can look at that and disqualify it and say like, oh, just trying to work on my wife's attitude. She has a negative view of me. And maybe there's some truth to that. But the way as a man, you should look at that situation is what type of man do I need to be that even a woman with a negative attitude would still respect me?
yeah. I mean,
Right.
it's exactly right. I said it already, but I'll keep going for the sake of time. But laziness or lacking excellence. We were looking at Colossians 3:23. In everything you do it as unto the Lord, right? And if you're the kind of person that you're like, oh, we'll just get it done, or whatever, it's good enough. Like, guess what? Your wife's and other people are probably not going to want you to do things. It's like, yeah, it'll get done, but you'll have to redo it. I mean, your quote that you love is, "There's only 2 ways to do things." G, right?
The right way. And again,
Exactly.
respect and credibility are both like niche versions of trust. And the saying is, trust is gained in ounces and lost in pounds,
Yeah.
right? And you can say that a million different ways, but you gain trust very incrementally and you lose it dramatically. And it's the same for respect and credibility, right? You could get in my truck 20 times and it be clean, And because of people's awareness for the negative versus the positive, people might just take it for granted that Garrett's truck was always clean. But if you got in my truck and in the passenger seat, there's just a bunch of garbage on the floor, you would lose so much credibility for me or respect for me. So all these things, if you're doing these things, you're just burning the value that you have of respect and credibility.
Yeah, so good. All right, and then the last thing, and this kind of goes along, you're going to see a trend here. I mean, if once again, if you can do things good for like a month and then you fall off, like you don't understand. And this is what I mean. I think that where people don't understand, they don't understand that they're sending a message and they're communicating what kind of person they are. And how you do anything is how you do everything, is the saying that we love on this podcast. And there's a reason for that. If you can't, like I said, you don't just pick and choose where you're consistent or where you're disciplined or where you're not a quitter. It is literally, it's going to bleed into every area of your life.
That statement of how, a lot of people think, well, that's stupid.
Right.
How you do anything is how you do everything. That is a statement that mirrors respect and credibility. And by the way, God sees it the same way,
Mm,
because God looked at David and said, here's a man, right? He says, by the skillfulness of your hand and the integrity of your heart is why God chose David to shepherd his people. The way this guy shepherds sheep, the value of the life of a sheep is incomparable to the life of a person. The
mhm,
ability to lead a docile domestic animal is incomparable to the leadership it takes to lead people. But God saw the way that David led sheep, cared for sheep, served them, and said, this guy has exactly what I'm looking for.
yeah.
God looked at David and said, the way that you do that, I'll teach you all the rest. I'll give you all the rest. And this is exactly what how you do anything is how you do everything looks like. And so if you don't, this is, Nick has, realized over the years why I am some of the way that I am about things, where I'm very nitpicky about certain stuff, because I'll say, this little thing that you think doesn't matter, it's crushing you.
Yeah. No, and unfortunately, you've been right. I say unfortunately, it's been very helpful, but uh,
It's
sometimes not
only
always fun.
it's only unfortunate if you don't take it.
Okay, well, yes, sir. Anyways, so you're sacrificing your credibility with excuses, quitting, laziness, which we're saying is lacking excellence, and inconsistency. And so those are four areas for your credibility. You really need to think about those. Where you sacrifice respect. And the question that Garrett asks that I think is so good is, would you want people to stop and listen to you when you have something to say? If the answer is no, then cool. You can go listen to something entertaining and just be mindless.
Who
But I would
wouldn't
hope that
want
you want to.
who wouldn't want that? That's I have lived in, like, I want people to care what I have to say. I want people to listen to me when I speak. I don't understand why you wouldn't want that. I want to be the type of person that when I speak, people stop speaking and they start listening. And
Yeah,
that comes from people having a lot of respect for you. And respect does not fall on you. It
right.
is something that you build over time.
Yeah, and really, I think Garrett, to be honest, man, and this is because I've been a guy who wanted people to listen to what he had to say, but like would get frustrated when they didn't. I think a lot of it, and I'm not throwing stones from my glass house here. It's just lacking awareness of what causes people to respect you, right? And because I very much was like, well, I don't care what people think about me, and I thought that that was a good attitude to have because I wasn't insecure. But that callousness was a lack of awareness, which is one of the things that will sacrifice your respect. Because for me, it's a way that you'll embarrass yourself when you lack awareness. Is if you lack the way that you come across because you're just like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. People in that room aren't going to respect you.
Well, it's like getting up in front of an audience as a comedian and no one laughs at your jokes and you say they're all idiots.
Right,
Right? At some point, you have to take some ownership and be like, maybe my jokes aren't funny.
right. Well, and use of humor is one of the ways that we said that you sacrifice respect. It's like I obviously love jokes. I love humor. Your dad last year at your birthday chose the time to tell me 3 times at the dinner table that I needed to tone down my sharpness and that he had even talked about it with your mom. And you know how highly I regard both of your parents. They're my adopted parents. And I'm like, man, shoot. So like your birthday party was not as much fun for me. I was like having a word with myself as I was like eating my steak. But you know what? He was right because here's where it hurt me. And here's where I'm going to share this because I hope it helps somebody. My first response to things was to crack a joke. Sarcasm was built into me from the UK. And what I realized is when you do that enough times, when you say something for real, people like kind of smile and then you have to go, no, I'm being serious. So guess what? If people don't know how to take you, if they have no certainty as to how you're going to show up, like is this joke guy or is this guy in a serious mode today? that you're not giving them anything to respect because
I'm
they have no certainty in you.
I'm kind of the opposite of the
Oh,
spectrum. I
we
sometimes when I speak, like I'll tell a joke, and I feel like I have to tell people it's okay. I was telling a joke. You can laugh,
yeah.
and because I think people take me. So I take my words super seriously, and that's what I want. What I would rather be taken overly sincere than overly sarcastic.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously, I would say one of the big guidelines. If you're one of those people out there, look, I still use humor plenty, but it's based on the level of relationship I have with the person. I do not lead with. I would have led with humor in the past, whereas now I'm like, no, I need this person to respect me, and if we build a relationship, then we can have some fun with some of the humor. And that's been my tip, and never in public. Like if I have a mic in my hand and I'm talking to a crowd, at that point, unless it's like a very friendly humor, like my type of preferred sarcasm does not come out because it just doesn't, it's just not interpreted well. And that's something I had to be aware of. Another thing, complaining. Who respects somebody who complains? And remember, this is in your marriage. If you're the guy that's making jokes of things all the time, if you're the guy that's like lacking awareness and embarrassing himself, and then you're also complaining, why would your wife
And it's
respect you?
and I don't mean see it's not just people. There's two parts to this. It's not complain to your wife about her. When you complain to your wife about "Man, my stupid car, my job, this
Right.
person, whatever it is, that complaining, it does not create respect. And so I think it's close to obvious to people that if you complain to someone about them, it costs you. But I think people complain in general and think that like, oh, I just need to vent. No, you're what you're saying is like, I can't handle my emotions. My problems are too big for me. And I'm not, you got to have the people in your life that you can talk to about real issues. I will talk to Nick about some stuff in my life that's very frustrating and hard for me, but complaining is a tone and an attitude. And
100%.
Nick doesn't hear me complain.
No, well, we don't complain to each other. We talk about what we're dealing with and our perspective on it. And we always come at it from a standpoint of like, we're there and we don't know when it's going to change, but we're going to keep doing the right things because we believe.
Because really, what is a complaint? I don't know Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary definition. If Nick can pull it up really quick, I'll be impressed. But a complaint, like you file a complaint, it is
Yeah.
something you give to an authority saying like, "Hey, what are you going to do with this issue?" That's the way that I take a complaint. Is you're filing it up, you're giving it away, saying, "Hey, what are you going to do with this situation?" And so that's what a complaint, like children complain to their parents, right? Like there's not enough food in the refrigerator. I don't like this flavor of popsicle, with the undertone or in parentheses of, so what are you going to do about it? And that's what it comes across as when you complain to people, is you're saying like, I got these problems. What are you going to do about it? And that's why it demeans respect.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. It's the expression, the utter expression of grief, to lament. Yeah, and to utter expressions of censure or resentment. Basically, not a show of strength.
it's
It's not.
whining.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
whining.
That's what it is. It's whining, and right in line with that is losing emotional control. Like whether it's anger or whether it's a temper tantrum.
It's the most costly one. You set your house on fire when you lose emotional control.
Yeah, I mean, it's and there's plenty of scriptures in there to read about that. We've talked about that at length, so we don't. I don't want to spend as much time on that. I want to wrap here shortly, G. But the other one that we put in here was, and not a surprise, Garrett's number one core value was positive attitude. So having a bad attitude, once again, pity parties. No one respects the guy who's in the corner, just like having a tantrum, throwing a fit, feeling bad for himself, like humping and oh, so like
It's just general attitude. It's just a general negativity, right? You can not have complaints, but just be like, our boss sucks. Like this situation sucks. It's not. We don't have a good leader. I don't like what's going on. It's just a general negative attitude. It
mhm,
brings no value to your team. It brings no value to your family. And when you do it, people look at you and just don't want to be around you, right? You may have created circles and rooms in your life where you're a negative person with other negative people. But if you want to go anywhere in life, be around positive people, and positive people don't want to be around negative people.
That's 100% true. It's an energy drain. And the very last one for sacrifice and respect is complacency, which is a lack of growth. If you are at the point where you're like, I just want to be comfortable, this is enough. Where we see this, unfortunately, I was talking with Pastor Josh. You were there. I think he said like 70% of America now qualifies as being obese. That is a shocking stat. And it's also, you want to talk about complacency. That's a real easy one, is in the physical way that you look. But I mean, it's complacency in so many areas. You give up on getting better at your job. You give up on any personal growth and develop. You give up on trying to better your marriage. I mean, why would you have respect if you just kind of like, man, I was really hoping we could just ride this thing out, just put it in
Just
pieces.
think about any great author or person that you respect. They may have been someone at one time who was an authority, but if you see them plateau and just be like, oh, well, these are just my thoughts, and I'm going to stay here, you'll lose respect for them. And in the same way, you can meet someone who's 90 years old, and it's like, you know what, I'm learning piano this year. I'm learning this
Yeah.
thing, and you have more. So you're like, man, look at this person that's growing. Complacency is an attitude that of stifled growth, and
Mhm.
it's one of the things that people lose respect for you over. And yes, like you're saying, Nick, complacency or laziness towards appearance is one of the other ones. Yes, you know what? I had this conversation with Nick, years ago. It's not that he
Love to
was
hear it.
doing anything wrong, but I said, hey, if you had more muscle, people would respect you more. It's just a general, especially among men, it's an appearance related thing. But that's also just taking that being in great shape that's a very difficult item. It takes years to get to a respectable physical appearance. But there's so many small things of just like, what do your clothes look like? Did you, put any intention into your outfit? How many days, I don't, shave with a razor, but I do trim my beard, right? I get haircuts. Like, what are the things that you're doing to look respectable? Hey, if you know what, there's guys that have long hair and long beard and they still look good. And there's also guys that have a long hair and long beard and look like they live in their car.
Right.
And it's just doing the things to manage your appearance. If you want respect, do these things. If you don't want respect, you can just disregard.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. I really hope that this is an episode that you sit there and you take on board and you look yourself in the mirror, because there are so many ways that you sacrifice respect and credibility with daily small choices. And so I hope this is an alarm bell ringing for you guys, and that we can step up, because we need men to be the leaders and the providers and the lovers that they're called to be.